Steven Spielberg was making The Prince of Egypt, that cartoon of the Exodus story, wonderful, wonderful film. He was struggling to figure out how to do the voice of God, which is a reasonable thing to struggle with. So the story goes, now of course it's a story, so I'm not here to tell you it's true, but it's the way I heard it. I may actually have heard it from the horse's mouth, so it may actually really be true, but I'm not ready to pledge. So the story goes, and this you could see in the credits, that the Lord Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sacks was, of blessed memory, was a consultant to the movie, and then you could see it in the credits. So the story goes, and I think now that I'm telling it, I think I did hear it from him. So I'm going to say it really happened. The story goes that Spielberg called him, or whatever he did, I don't know, and said that, what are we going to do with the voice of God? And the answer was, he said, and I believe this is what happened, is that Steven Spielberg had everyone working on the movie record God's lines, and then they layered them all on top of each other, and that's the voice that you hear. So I just have this feeling that that when we all say hi at the same time, we're like, somehow that's a little bit closer to what it sounds like to hear God's voice. So let's do it one more time. So I'm going to count to 3 again. Okay. Now, the stakes are high. Stakes are high. And we're going to greet each other, however you want to greet each other. Okay, let's do it. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Hi,
hello, everybody.
welcome.
Good
to see you.
Welcome, Darren.
Good
Darren. George Burns had a pretty good God voice.
Can you do it?
No, only George Burns could do it.
The first, listen, it's a little unfair because some people in this room know each other very well. And I know some of the people in this room very well. And some people in this room don't know each other maybe at all. And some people don't know me at all. But what I hope everyone's getting already is the feeling like that we're in my living room. Actually, we're in my garage. This is my garage. I'm going to let you into a little secret. And you see, I have a background on, but that's because it's nice. But let me show you what actually, look, this is the actual room I'm sitting in. This is my garage, but I made it a picture because it's a little bit nicer than seeing all the stuff that's hanging over here. Okay, so it's not exactly my living room, but it's my garage in Palo Alto. And I hope that that feeling you just had, hopefully, I know you felt it because I felt it, that warmth of just greeting each other. I'm hoping everybody feels that way for the next hour or so, however long we're going to go for. And also for the series, we've got six sessions we're going to be together. I know not everybody can make it to every session, and that's fine. But the goal is for it just to really feel like a place where you're welcome, where what you have to say, however you're showing up, is enough, and we all want to enter with a spirit of welcoming. So
Nice.
Oh, thanks. I love that. Is that Erwin? Was that you?
I was waving goodbye to my wife. She had to go.
Okay. Someone said nice. I liked it. Maybe it was George Burns. I don't know. Okay, so we did. So we spoke and we heard. So now just take a moment and just look. Just take a moment and just look at each person on the screen, and you can flash a smile at them as you look at each person, and just greet them with your pearly whites, or maybe I'm from England, they're a little yellow by now, but give people a smile. Just really appreciate. Here we are, right? Something. I was thinking, I was walking the dog this morning. I don't know why I was thinking about today, and I thought, it just came into my mind. I thought it's just a miracle. And then I thought, because it's my nature, I thought, well, I have to define what's a miracle, So one definition I think of a miracle is something that if it happened at some other time in history, it would have been unimaginable and considered utterly impossible, right? That's one definition of a miracle, right? So think about this, right? For the previous, I don't know, what is it, 14.8 billion You know what it is? There's another miracle. Here's another miracle. I had my Bluetooth on my computer. My wife is upstairs and she put on her AirPods and it snatched the sound away, So anyway, I'm just thinking like it's all miraculous. I mean, like, what is that? Somehow my wife took the sound away upstairs. I mean, it's just amazing. So I don't know. I want to say that as well by way of introduction while we look at each other what did people say? We got Denver, Colorado, and Phoenix, Arizona, and Portland, Oregon, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Lafayette, Louisiana, and I don't know where else. Palo Alto.
Santa Monica, California.
Thank you, Santa Monica. Anywhere else, folks?
Montreal, Canada.
Okay, all right, north of the border. Love that. Anywhere else?
Lewis, Delaware.
Look at this. I mean, so, we have the Jews have a way of marking this kind of recognition, right? You know the words, right? It goes like this: Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh, right? Blessed are you, Adonai, right? Whatever that is, the great mystery that seems to just keep this whole thing going, shehechianu, that gives us life, which we can't take for granted, v'kiyimanu, and lets us linger here. We get a little bit longer. I'm sitting here. I keep this picture right here on my desk. Maybe you can see. It's a picture on September 12th, 2001. I was a chaplain at Ground Zero for 11 hours. And I found this picture. And I couldn't find the person in the picture, so I kept it. But this guy showed up to work that morning, the day before. And, his V'kiyimanu was probably, not that long. So here we are. We take a moment and appreciate that. V'higianu lazman hazeh brings all of us from all over the place through this inexplicable thing called Zoom to this moment in time. And I don't know about you, but I'm inclined to say amen. Okay, well, this is nice. So here, let me talk a little bit about what we're going to do. I'm going to say some things. Hopefully you'll say some things. I proceed with trepidation. There's a wonderful teaching in Pirkei Avot, which is, one of those great wisdom texts of the Jewish tradition. It says that there are 7 traits of a wise person. The first of which is not speaking in the presence of those who are greater in numbers and wisdom. So I'm nervous because I'm on the low end of that scale in terms of both categories, and so anything I have to say is like it's not final. It's just what I'm thinking about. Like I'm kind of opening my mind a little bit and my heart too. And I'm just kind of letting you in, but I hope you'll do the same to me, and we'll do the same with each other. To some extent, this should be a conversation, although I'm not in denial about my location in the room. So I'll say some things, and we'll talk a little bit, and we'll go at this kind of a pace. We're 12 minutes in, so if you're feeling impatient, then you just have to unwind a little bit. We'll go slow. We have 6 sessions where we're in no rush to get anywhere. And I'm certain I'm going to learn something. I hope you do too. But anything we learn, I'm convinced of this, anything we learn is only going to be a revelation in the sense that we knew it already, but we just got reminded of it. It's like that's the definition of a revelation, right? It's astounding and obvious at the same time. So that's the thing. So anytime I say something or someone else says something and it doesn't seem like something you remember knowing to be true, I hope you'll raise your hand and say, excuse me, and we'll work it out together. We'll work it out together. We'll kind of unpack it and we'll figure out what's going on. So that's the mode. I'll say some things, you'll say some things. We'll talk a little bit, that's kind of how it'll go. I'll have some slides. The slides are just there kind of as a guide. It's like the score. They're very bright backgrounds intended to keep you awake. And we'll take it from there. I don't know, anyone has a question or a concern, or anyone want to say anything you feel like you got to get off your chest right now? Let's just take a moment. If you're not sure about what it is we're doing, I'm going to nod if what I'm about to say is correct. I'll take your silence to be a sense that I should continue. Is that correct? Okay, good, lovely. All right. So here we go. Okay, so this is our topic. This is our topic, okay? Practicing Judaism in the 21st century, rereading the Torah as a spiritual handbook. And I came up with that title 6 months ago, and so it's been on my mind now for 6 months. And at the time that I proposed it, I didn't know what it meant. I spent the last 6 months thinking about what it meant, and I'm going to kind of share that with you. And then we'll see what happens. Let me just tell you about this session. Here's the outline. Here's what we're going to cover, to which I make no commitment. I mean, if it looks like time is moving on, it could be that session 1 is all 6 sessions. I don't yet know, but this is what I had in mind for this session. We'll see. So we did the welcome. Everybody did well there. Thank you. Basically going to just define terms. You know, I'm just going to unpack the title, right? What do I mean by practicing Judaism in the 21st century? What do I mean by practice? What do I mean by practicing Judaism? And what do I have to say about the 21st century? And then rereading the Torah as a spiritual handbook. I'm going to, what is the Torah? What does it mean to read the Torah? And what are spiritual handbooks? And then, again, I don't know if we'll get to all this today, and if not, we'll just pick it up next week. And then we'll do practice zero, which is essentially the kind of foundation for everything that we're gonna do. So that's the outline. Gives you a clear sense of where we're going, what we're going to cover. So let's do it. Okay, so practicing Judaism in the 21st century. So let's talk about practice. You know, people who have I don't know if people have a sporting interest here, but watching professional basketball, but I didn't include it. Maybe I'll bring it next time. There's a wonderful clip that was well known amongst fans of basketball with Allen Iverson raising the question about the importance of practice. And it's a funny piece. He's very funny in it. He's very funny, and he had quite a personality. But the essence of what he was saying was that, like, practice is not important. It's the playing of the game that's important, you know. To which I say, "Oi nebuch, Allen Iverson, boy, did you not get it?" You know, practice. So let's talk about practice. What is practice? So I'm going to rely on my trusted Oxford English Dictionary. Right here are the kind of 4 major categories. The entry in the OED is very long. It's an old word, and it has usages in a lot of different contexts. So first definition in the OED is a practice is something to be pursued or be engaged in, right? A particular occupation, a profession, a skill, or an art. And already your mind is probably doing that thing where you're like, you're thinking about your own profession or your occupation or an art. And you say, oh, so maybe I have a practice, right? So practice is to pursue or be engaged in a certain occupation, profession, skill, or an art. That's the first definition. Second definition, to perform an activity or exercise a skill repeatedly or regularly in order to acquire, improve, or maintain proficiency. Okay? It's interesting that these two are different, right? That they're separate. Just because you pursue or are engaged in a certain occupation doesn't necessarily mean you have acquired, improved, or maintained proficiency, right? Because that's definition number 2, to perform an activity or exercise a skill repeatedly or regularly in order to acquire, improve, or maintain proficiency. Number 3, to observe a religious duty, to perform a rite, to carry out the teachings of a particular religion, to be an active observer of a faith. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up in England as a kid, you would say, do you practice Judaism? I don't know if that's said in America or not. I don't hear that very often. I've been in the States 22, 23 years. I don't hear a lot of people talk about practice. I hear observance, but not practicing as much. But when I grew up, that was the word people used. Okay. 3, 4, to act habitually. Okay, these are the 4 major categories of definition in the Oxford English Dictionary. I'm not interested in all of them for the sake of this course. I'm not interested in pursuing or engaging in a particular occupation, profession, skill, or art. And I'm not interested in observing a religious duty or performing a rite or carrying out the teachings of a particular religion, or to be an active observer of a faith. I'm not interested in those definitions. What I'm interested in is performing activities or exercising skills repeatedly or regularly in order to acquire, improve, or maintain proficiency. And I'm interested in acting habitually. We might say in one word, I'm interested in practice as like training. That's what I'm interested in. That's the kind of practice that I want to be talking about. And when I talk about practicing Judaism in the 21st century, that's what I mean, right? If I meant observing a religious duty or performing a rite, or et cetera, I could say, go to synagogue on a Saturday morning, right? I'm not against going to a synagogue on a Saturday morning, but that's not what I'm talking about, right? If I was talking about pursuing a particular occupation, profession, skill, or art, I might say, become a cantor, right? But I don't mean that. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about proficiency and habituation, training, okay? And then I'll add my own definition. It's interesting that it's not present in the lengthy Oxford English Dictionary definition, and that is to prepare for something. Practice is a preparation for something, okay? So that's what I mean by practice, right? Now, I said to you that, I remember hearing that word in the Jewish context when I was a kid in England, but I haven't heard it again for a very long time. The word practice has come back to me in the last 5, 6, 7 years, maybe a little bit longer. And this may be familiar to some people through my encounter with Buddhism. Anyone that's checking out mindfulness or meditation, you hear that word practice all the time. It's a very, very common word that's used to describe kind of meditation and other Buddhist types of practices. Let me give you an example of how it's used. So this is from a wonderful book by Sylvia Boorstein called "That's Funny, You Don't Look Buddhist." Sylvia is a kind of influential Jubu. She lives up here in the Bay Area. And so she wrote a book, and in it, she was trying to think about why are Jews so interested in Buddhism. So she asked this question, why are Jews so interested in Buddhism? And she cites this answer from an interesting chap named Jonathan Omerman, who just died this year. Jonathan Omerman was a kind of mystic. He lived in LA. And he answered this question, why are Jews interested in Buddhism? He said, because it's a complete, mature, sophisticated spiritual path, okay? And Boorstein writes, Jonathan's answer, dramatic enough to almost end the conversation, was closest to the truth. The Buddhism that had come to the West offered a clear explanation for suffering and tools for the direct personal realization of a peaceful mind. It required practice. There it is, practice, not affiliation. It was a great spiritual path. It promised transformation, right? So right here, right, it required practice, not affiliation, right? So it's actually that my kind of focus around this notion of practice has kind of been sharpened through my encounter with Buddhism. And in fact, I would say that the encounter with Buddhism has kind of in some ways helped me appreciate Judaism in ways I hadn't before. which leads me to this lovely story I like to tell. By the way, I put it up on the screen because I know some people learn better by listening, but some people need to read along. So I want to make sure everybody's included. So maybe you know this story about Isaac of Jekyll, right? So here I'm reading from here. A rabbi from Krakow once dreamed that he should go to Prague to find a hidden treasure buried under a bridge. Right. So in Prague, far away from home, he found the bridge guarded by a Christian who laughed at him for believing in dreams. He, the Christian, after all, had had a similar dream, which told him to go to Krakow, where he would find a treasure buried behind the stove of a rabbi named Isaac, the son of Jekyll. The rabbi said nothing but hurried home, for he was Isaac, son of Jekyll, and the treasure he had sought in a distant land was in fact buried in his very own home. And this last line is from the author. It's not in the story. But, and this is the key to the story, such a treasure could only be discovered and fully appreciated by a trip to a distant land and its foreign, in this case, Christian culture. Let me give you the story in a word, in one very pithy sentence from Max Muller, right? He who knows one knows none. You know, so it's like, yeah, you have to go outside to come back in. You know, if you've only ever, maybe you know this in Bible studies, there's this lovely thing called a hapax legomenon. Anyone know what a hapax legomenon is? A hapax legomenon is a word that only appears once in the Hebrew Bible, a Hebrew word. There are a few of them. And the problem with a hapax legomenon is there's no way of knowing what it means. Right? So similarly, someone who's only ever existed within the context of a single religious tradition actually has no way of understanding what it's about, right? Because that acts as a kind of a hapax legomenon for them, right? That's what Max Muller meant, he or they or she, right? No, he who knows one religion knows none, right? So this idea of practice, what I want to say is I'm focusing here for this whole course on proficiency, habituation, and preparation. And what I'm saying is that I came to this from outside of the Jewish tradition. I came to this through my engagement with Buddhism, and I'm grateful for it, and I encourage it. So that's practice. By the way, in Western Buddhism, all of this would be distilled to one word, and it's right here, and that would be skill, right? The Western Buddhist term for that is becoming skillful. So when I talk about practice, I'm interested in becoming skillful. Okay. What about practicing Judaism? Okay, before we go to practicing Judaism, anyone have anything you want to say about practice? Anything that's coming up? Any clarification questions?
Yeah, I would just add, practice is pretty fundamental to modern psychotherapies, particularly in the behavioral and the cognitive behavioral tradition, and the parent training tradition, that we do a lot of that work, and we have a saying in the work, the home practice is the program. It's not insight, it's the practice and the application. And there's a neuroscience correlate of that, which is neurons that fire together, wire together, which is kind of a truism, that through practice, you gain proficiency because you're programming your mind. It's not just Buddhism, though Buddhism is very rich in that. It's very much modern behavioral science as well.
Great. I appreciate that, Erwin. It's good to know. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Please tell me how to pronounce it.
Aglaia.
Aglaia, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to throw in also, you might be getting into this in your next section though, but practice also depends on the person, because whatever, there are times when certain ways of practicing whatever skill, they'll work for one person, but they won't work for the next person. So practice also has to be an individualized.
Any others? Okay. So we kind of have a sense of the terrain. That's great. But by the way, actually, I want to go back to what Erwin said. Erwin said it's not just Buddhism. By the way, as a rule, I'm suspicious of any claims that a truth is found in one place. You know, there's that wonderful text in the Talmud that says, you know, the word for falsehood in Hebrew is sheker, the 3 letters shin, kuf, resh. And in the Hebrew alphabet, they're all next to each other. They're right next to each other. And the Hebrew word for truth is emet, aleph, mem, taf. And aleph is at the beginning of the alphabet, and mem is in the middle, and taf is at the end. And the teaching is very simple, right? It's true when you find it everywhere. It's a lie when you only find it in one place. So I really appreciate that you said that, Erwin. And yeah, I just think Buddhism was the tradition that was able to like hammer it into this thick skull, you know. But psychotherapy works too, I hear. Okay, practicing Judaism. All right. So I guess I should set this up. The only thing I want to say is what I'm going to propose is a why for practicing Judaism. Like why would we engage in this? I mean, what's its function? You know, there's a lot of books out there, you know, why be Jewish? Why do Jewish? You know, you can read those books, you know. And another kind of general rule is if you have to write a book to explain something, you probably have the wrong answer, you know, because there's, I mean, I don't want to sound overly anti-intellectual, but I sometimes do have that tendency, you know. I think it's quite simple, you know, why practice Judaism is kind of like, you know, why be human? So I have a basic notion of my own answer to that question, and there's 2 parts to it. The first is I like this articulation of it, but we could have many others. You know, this is that moment in the Jacob story, right? So Judaism is funny this way. You know, one of the things that Buddhism and Christianity has over most other world religions is that the name tells you which personality to pay attention to get like the core teachings of that tradition. You know, Islam and Judaism and Hinduism, they don't really do, you don't know where to look exactly, you know. So in case it wasn't clear to you, I mean, I think a lot of folks, if we did a poll right now, you say, you know, who is the personality to pay attention to in the Jewish wisdom tradition? If you want to understand the core teachings, I think a lot of people would say Moses. I don't know about everybody, but a lot of people would, because he gets a lot of real estate in the Torah. But I think that that's not the case. I think that the character, the narrative character, and it's too bad that these are all dudes, of course, you know, it'd be nice to kind of get a little bit more diversity of variety, but, you know, that's why we read more contemporary stuff to kind of fill out, you know, the gaps. But clearly, to my mind, the character is Jacob, and the reason that's clear, of course, is because Judaism wasn't always called Judaism, right? At some point, it was called, you know, Bnei Yisrael or Israel, right? Which is the name that Jacob receives, and so there's this, right? Jacob's story. It's the same as, you know, similar to, you know, stories across traditions, is basically a story of self-discovery, spiritual awakening, etc., etc. And you have this moment, Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnato, and Jacob awoke from his sleep. I mean, you don't need to pull in awakening, you know, from a back pocket. It's right here, right? He woke up, Vayomer, and he said, Achen yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh. Right? Surely Adonai is in this place, and I did not know. Right? So why practice Judaism first? Is to wake up. By the way, right, and it doesn't matter. We'll get to this in future sessions, but right now it doesn't matter what Adonai means or what the content of this awakening is. Or that's for another time. But just from a generic point of view, wake up. You know, that's the first thing. And then once you wake up, right? Once you wake up, the summum bonum, you know, the ultimate ethical goal of the tradition, right? Limdu heitev dirshu mishpat, and there are many other examples. Dirshu mishpat, ashrei chamot, shiftu yatam, rivu almana. Do good, seek justice, help the oppressed, judge on behalf of the orphan, represent the widow, right? That's it. That's it, right? Wake up, do good. It doesn't mean there might not be, it doesn't mean that there aren't other things that you might benefit from engaging in Jewish life. There may be, but those are corollary or, or outcomes, not goals, right? The goals are wake up, do good, wake up, do good. Okay. Anybody against that? Wake up, do good. Anybody want to say, hell no? Okay. So practice, right? Become skillful. Practice Judaism, wake up, do good. 21st century. What's different about the 21st century? I mean, I don't know, but it's looking bad. It's looking bad. Maybe the worst it's ever been, right? I mean, it's pretty darn bad, right? And in our lifetime, everybody on this call, in our lifetime, it's going to get worse. It will not get better during the lifetime of anybody on this call, in total. And this data is just relative to the human species, of course, right? We don't even have to go into the larger impact on the biosphere, right? So I guess to just lean on Hillel for a moment, right? If not now, when? I mean, this is we're all on the Titanic, folks, which doesn't mean that there aren't good things. Doesn't mean there isn't opportunity to find wonder and joy in the world. But in the context of wake up, do good, there isn't a diminishing amount of good to be done. There's an increasing need. There's an increasing need. And that's right, Shelby. Yeah. I mean, I opened the New York Times this morning to see somehow New York City looks like, San Francisco halfway through the summer. Right. So we're living in it. We're living in it. Right. We're living in it. And everybody knows, right? I mean, to go back to the first part of why Judaism, the wake up part, one of the key practices for waking up is realizing you're going to die. We know that. It's just. I mean, that's why I keep this chap on my desk every day. I spend most of my day looking at this person, and I don't want to forget. And people, I'm sure, are aware the literature around near-death experiences is vast. Now, of course, the irony is, I don't know if it's irony, but I'm using that word, is that nothing really changed, right? We were gonna die before, and we're gonna die now. The difference is that we're going to be faced with more suffering than we have before. I mean, if we're fortunate, and maybe if you're on this call, you're one of those fortunate people, you'll be able to avoid the worst of the effects of climate change, and let alone all the other things in the world. 1 billion people living in extreme poverty, less than $1.90 a day, 100 million permanent refugees who will never settle ever in their lives. And the list goes on. But even for those of us that may be fortunate or privileged for no good reason to avoid the worst of it, we will have to bear witness to it. We have to bear witness to it. And so that's why the 21st century. I mean, the other reason why the 21st century is because it's now. So if you're not awake, wake up. Wake up. And if you need someone to come over and shake you, just give me your address. I'll come. I'll just shake you. Wake up, okay? So that's the right. That's the headline of the class, Practicing Judaism in the 21st Century. We're at the 45-minute mark, so I'm actually tempted to kind of pause there a little bit. Maybe we can enter into conversation, because I think if I push into the second half, it'll be rushed, and we could do that part. We could do that part next time. Let's see. But let me pause there and see how people are feeling, what people are thinking, what's coming up. Yeah, Catherine.
Well, you are so young. You're really a baby, and I'm old. And maybe I have another perspective because of that. Not another perspective, just a little deviation. One, our faith is a living faith. All faiths are. I absolutely agree about having different faiths, though I was brought up in one. Um, I wanted to say that climate change is a terrible problem. AI is a terrible problem. Taiwan and Ukraine is a terrible problem. But if we had this meeting in Germany in 1936, we'd have a lot more problems about going out. And so we've always faced problems. And as long as we live our faith and we strengthen it to live at the times we're faced with, I have a much more positive outlook about getting through it, because history has shown us our people have, and the human race has. So I try to stay positive. Is that okay?
Well, first of all, is what you think and feel, so it's definitely okay. And second of all, I'm so grateful that you shared it, and it's uplifting, and I believe you.
It pays to be old because we reflect from whence we came when you've had a long life. So I've lived through the polio epidemic, just post-war. I've lived through the wars in Israel, in the Middle East. I've worked Africa, also war situations. I'm now in Canada and woke up this morning to alerts because we have the fires in the forest, and it's not good to go out if you have respiratory. And most of our smoke is going down to New York and south. And so what I'm trying to say is, all through my life, it's been a long life, but we've lived with problems, and we get through it, and our faith is instrumental. I mean, I firmly believe that, and it's the greatest miracle, as you were saying before, that we can give our children and each other, because it's the last thing we have when everything's taken from us.
Amen. Shelby.
I appreciate Catherine's input. Interestingly, I end up saying that to my mother. My mother's 87, who has probably lived around the same amount of time, where I keep saying to her, you lived for a world war. How can this be the worst time in the world? I mean, but at the end, when you said, Catherine, that our faith is what gets us through this, I do see some differences now, because we're killing our planet, which is something that's never happened. But I think going to what you were talking about, practicing and what's the point, it's what we do here and who we are that gets us through it. I can't solve the world's problems. I can't solve climate change, but I can try to walk through the world in a way that makes it livable for me.
Oh, I see, Natalie, I saw your comment there. Awareness kept coming up. Do you want to say more about that? You're on mute. I'm gonna ask you to unmute. Yeah, you're gonna say, okay, Aglaya.
Okay, I wasn't trying to. Natalie, are you sure that you're not? Okay, all right. So I actually did not live through a lot of things like world wars and everything, but I am a history professor, so I have to actually teach people about those sorts of things. So, and it's not pretty to actually have to tell a bunch of undergrads about, yeah, it's not a pretty sight. One of the things though that does concern me though is that like I see a lot of apathy out there, a lot of apathy. And so here's where I'm going to go with this. Now, take it though, I was someone who went through a very long phase of just religion hostility. Okay. I had to stop that. But anyway, though, that was something I had to stop. But how would we reach people who are either apathetic or religion hostile, like I was, with our practice? How does our practice reach them?
Do you have a thought about that question?
My thought is that, well, I mean, the only thing that I can think of is that I don't want to say lead by example, but our examples actually do matter to someone. Now, I sit there and look at classrooms of people who don't actually care, and I'm the one giving the grades, and they pay to blow me off, give me the brush off. But I mean, there's always, I'm not going to, not have those lectures about world wars and stuff like that, and then actually go into the hard questions about them. I think that it's a slow and painstaking process, though, but you might reach people on an individual level with your own individual practice. Tikkun olam, or, stuff like that. Basically, though, but it's one of those things we have to be prepared for it to be a very slow process, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And I don't think you need it, but I'll offer my encouragement that you do that thing that you just said, because it sounds true to me. Natalie, did you want to say something? I don't know. I saw your comment, but I don't know if you can hear me. I'm not sure. Okay. Well, I think this is a good start. You get the terrain. I hope folks will come back, because it's like it's an onion, but it won't make your eyes sore. We got to peel it back. We're gonna kind of move through these things, and we'll start to kind of understand the direction we're moving in. But here's a little to close with this. A little I don't want to say homework, because I know that people come out in hives when they hear homework. But something you could think about between now and next week is what's one thing you could practice to kind of cultivate some skill in the areas that we've been talking about. Just one thing. You could just say, I'm going to work on it for just this week. This week, very small, very focused. And even while I'm talking about it right now, you could be thinking about it. Maybe I'll just give some simple examples, like, can I make sure that I greet the barista with, real attention and care and concern, really acknowledge them while they're standing there all day and, making my coffee at minimum wage, like, how can I be in that moment? Or just in my workspace or in my family, can I just be more attentive or aware, to use Natalie's word, about, how I'm meeting the world, what kind of, maybe to use Aglaya's word, what kind of example am I setting? I don't know about you, but I'm certain everyone on this call still has some room to, there's always something we can work on. I think maybe not you, but certainly me, plenty to work on. So now I've kind of set, that's the homework, is just think of one thing. You could do it or not do it. There's no grade. It's okay. It's up to you. You don't have to feel bad if you don't do it. None of that. But just to invite you to think of one thing that you want to try to practice for this next week. And if you can think of that one thing, maybe when we get off the call, maybe you would write it down as something about the contractual nature of writing something down. And then just considering, when will I have the opportunity to do this? Once today, once tomorrow, once the next day. And who knows, maybe next week some people will check in and share what it was like. Maybe not, I don't know. But let's give that a shot, and then we'll come back. We'll come back next week. Let's just end. We'll take a moment, just kind of let all of this settle. And we started with the Shehechianu. So you have to end. There's this old tradition that I think has been lost in many parts of the Jewish world, that it's related to the drinking of wine. So if you have this maybe on a Friday night or on a holiday in the evening, sometimes there's a blessing made over the wine. So if a nicer bottle of wine makes its way to the table after you said the blessing, you would say another blessing over it. You would say the Shehechianu blessing. But if another bottle comes that's even better and you didn't know was coming, and it's a real surprise, obviously by now, hopefully you're still sober enough to say a blessing with a clear head. But there's a third blessing, and the third blessing goes like this. And maybe this is inspired because I didn't know that this blessing would come up. I feel like it was inspired by Catherine. So thank you for what you shared. The blessing goes like this: Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hatov vehametiv. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of all of this, the good who makes good.